Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and today I'm bringing to you a video about Forretress in ADV. This is a Pokemon who is, I think, a little bit underrepresented by some players, but other players do swear by it. Looking at you, Juke. But I think it's a good Pokemon. It's getting a lot of experimentation now, and I think it's time for me to throw my hat in the ring, show you what I've been cooking with it. I don't know if I would claim it's even a good Fortress team, let alone one of the better ones, but it's an idea that I hope that you guys can expand upon as I present it to you. Let's get into the meat of this. So, Fortress, in the most recent viability rankings, was number 18, which is, I think, pretty respectable. Some would probably have it even lower. In fact, when I was starting ADV, somebody who I mean, was a pretty good player told me that Fortress is virtually unusable because Skarmory just does everything it does but better, which is not true. But you can hold that belief. You can not use a Fortress team in your life and have a lot of success in ADV. That is true. But it has a lot of capabilities that could arguably make it a top 15 worthy Pokemon. But I think about 18 is right for it. One thing I want to ask you all, though, and we're going to talk a little bit about roll compression as we go on here, but what's a Pokemon that you think that does an effective job at roll compression? The first Pokemon that comes to my mind when we talk about roll compression is actually Metagross. It's a really good Blissey check. It's also a rock resist, and it can potentially be a win condition if you have agility on it. So it really does a good job of getting a lot of rolls that you really do need on a team together. And I would say that Metagross, along with other Pokemon that have good roll compression, is like the king of pairing with Shitmons. You know, if you want to use these like lower down Pokemon, like in the E tier, like at the bottom of the screen, or even Pokemon that aren't quite even good enough to get to that ranking, then Metagross is probably your best bet. Forretress is another really good candidate, though, but I'm interested to hear what else you guys think. So, let's just put this simply. What we're talking about Forretress, why it even exists as a potential Pokemon to be used for a competitive OU game, and that's the move Spikes. Simply put, it's the best move in ADV. You know, Skarmory, of course, loves spikes. I wish somebody would love me as much as Skarmory loves its spikes. Sorry, I'm being... bringing my personal problems into my videos here. No, I'm joking. But, Skarmory and spikes in general are great for dealing damage to grounded Pokemon. When I say the word grounded, I mean not a flying type and does not have the ability to levitate. So, you know, your Swamperts and your Metagrosses and your Jirachis of the world, but not your Salamences and Flygons and Skarmories of the world. Gee, Skarmory just gets it all, huh? Spikes are stackable. You can set multiple layers, and you'll deal increasing damage to Pokemon when they switch in, depending on how many layers you have up. It will deal 1/8 or 12.5% if you have one layer, 1/6 or 16.7% with two layers, and 25% or a fourth if you have all three layers. Some will tell you that the second layer of spikes is not very valuable, and this is kind of true. If you look at the percentage difference between 1/8, 1/6, and 1/4, the jump from 1/8 to 1/6 is not nearly as stark as the jump from 1/6 to 1/4. So, yeah, you're only getting about 4% extra damage. That might not be that consequential, but you'd be surprised how much it racks up over the course of a long game. And it's also really nice at offsetting these Pokemon like Swampert, who are sand immune and have leftovers. So I wouldn't knock that second layer. Plus, you have to get the second layer to get the third layer. So, I mean, but regardless, even if you could only put down one layer of spikes, it probably would still be the best move in the game because switching is so fundamental to singles, and having something to punish that or make at least progress into that strategy is really, really powerful. The hierarchy of spikers. So I have a video on my channel that talks about spike setting in ADV. I would encourage you to check that out if you want to have a more holistic view on spikes. We're going to be talking about it a little bit here, but that's going to give you much more context there. And I bring this up because I'm about to spoil what my tier list says. Granted, you probably could have guessed what the tier list would have been if you had a little bit of game knowledge, but here it is. So at the top is Skarmory. That's the Jote right there. We have our OU spikers, who I do believe are both OU worthy, and they have their own sort of utility that they bring to the table, which we'll be examining. The rest of the spikers have their own interesting traits, except for the Little Cup Pokemon. I mean, granted, they might be pretty good in Little Cup or low tiers, but I don't really play those, so I'm not going to comment. UU spikers, I've seen them from time to time in OU. They sometimes have their place. And then that Misfits in the middle there have a little bit more of a place, but if you want to know more about them, go watch that video. So here's Skarmory's dominance, and in fact, if you know anything, or if you remember from our viability rankings a few slides ago, Skarmory is the consensus number 2 Pokemon. Although that's kind of shifting. Some people would say that Skarmory is number 1, and low-key, I might be one of them. It's got an excellent combination of defensive traits that make it the best spiker and probably the best utility Pokemon in the tier. And that's this fantastic combination here, ground immunity. And I want to note here, ground immunity is the most important immunity, at least in ADV. And that's not because of Earthquake, although that is a great thing to be immune to, but it's due to spikes. If you are immune to ground, you are immune to spikes. Another thing that's also arguably just as good, if not better, than being immune to Earthquake is being immune to Dugtrio's Arena Trap. Skarmory is not able to be trapped by Dugtrio. Now, granted, if you weren't getting hit by Earthquake from the Dugtrio, then it doesn't really matter if the Dugtrio traps you, but it's a good thing to note that you're able to have that freedom to switch, even in the face of a Dugtrio. Now, Magneton, that's going to be a different story, but we'll have to talk about Magneton a little bit later. Phasing, and that's with a Z, not an S. If you spell it with an S, I know you don't know ball, all right? I'm trying to teach you something here. Phasing, portmanteau of pseudo and hazing. Hazing being the move haze. Why is it called that? Well, it's because it stops your opponent's stat boosts, i.e. Roar and Whirlwind switch out the opponent so they can't retain their stat boosts anymore. And that's a huge, huge deal in ADV, as well as other metagames, but in ADV especially, because there's so many powerful boosters like Dragon Dance Tyranitar, Agility Metagross, Curse Snorlax, Calm Mind, name any of the 3 or 4 humongous threats with Calm Mind in the tier. And Skarmory having really solid defenses, being able to roar all of those out to greater or lesser extents. The Calm Mind sweepers may have something to say about that. Is just instrumental to a team's defensive longevity. Even on faster-paced teams, it's really important to have this. And then you're resistant to all but 2 physical types in the game, those being rock and fighting. But think about that. There are a lot of physical types. Normal. Well, that's basically it, right? Normal, rock, and fighting. But no, but being immune to things like ground, being resistant to things like Ghost can allow Skarmory to switch into a lot of moves that other Pokemon just can't really switch into as effectively. So that's a huge deal. Bug. Bug's another good one to be able to switch into. Poison, who cares? But, yeah, no, you would... Most Pokemon would trade their type for Skarmory's type. It's probably the best type combination in ADV. But a contender for best would definitely be Forretress's. Steel Bug is quite good. It's only weak to one type, which is fire. So that means that you have a lot of really, really good neutral and resists to your name. Unfortunately, though, some of the things that Forretress is missing out on that Skarmory has is holding it back. Not being immune to ground is a big deal. Now, you're not weak to it as a steel type, which is a good thing, but not being immune to it means that you are taking spikes damage. It means you can be trapped by Dugtrio. And that's not great. And it's also not great because Forretress is going to want to switch into spikes pretty commonly in many games. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But that's not a great thing for Forretress. No phasing to Forretress's name, so that means that Pokemon that can set up are kind of free to do so in front of Forretress. Things like Dragon Dance Tyranitar or Salamence are notably difficult. Even Curse Snorlax can be a problem for Forretress because while you do resist its normal stab, you don't really beat it down back. So, unless you have, like, Explosion, which we'll talk about. But, yeah, you have to be careful into something like Snorlax. And then the 4 times weakness to fire, while it is nice that you're only weak to one type, having a 4 times weakness to a type that is as common on especially mixed attackers as that is not a great one to pick. If you're going to pick to be weak to something, pick to be weak to something bad like Poison or... I mean, Bug is not a terrible attacking type, but, like, Celebi's 4 times Bug weakness is not as punishing to it as a 4 times Fire weakness is to Forretress, at least in my opinion. We can maybe have that debate in the comments if you want, but, yeah. All these Pokemon that could be packing Flamethrower or Fire Blast, and especially the ones that do to hit Skarmory, are absolutely destroying Forretress. So that's not a great place to be. But Forretress does have some silver linings, and that is in these 2 moves. Rapid Spin and Explosion. So, what's the big deal with these moves? And, I mean, Forretress is not the only one that gets them. Cloyster does as well. But this is not a video about Cloyster. If you want to see a video about Cloyster, go check out my video about Cloyster. Or about the Spikers, once again. Those are 2 great companion pieces to this video, if you think about it. Anyway, let's do a little stat comparison between Forretress and Skarmory, though, since this is going to be, like, the main thing that we're kind of analyzing is why would we want to use Forretress over Skarmory? And, well, if you just take a look at their stats here, you'll clearly see that Forretress is excelling in power and stamina, whereas Skarmory is more into its speed and jump. So this means that Skarmory is going to be much better for teams that want to excel at the Hurtle Dash, but Forretress is going to be much better for teams that want a better Pokemon for Block Smash. While Forretress is maybe not the best Pokemon for Block Smash, I think Metagross would be even better. It's still a really, really solid one, and then it's got decent skill and a workable jump stat if you want to use it for other sort of events that have to do with those. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't want to know about Pokeathlon. Why wouldn't you want to know about Pokeathlon? I mean, it's like way more fun than competitive Pokemon sometimes. No, I'm joking. Let's just take a look at the physical or the main game stats. You'll see that they actually are pretty similar. Forretress has got a little bit more HP, a little bit more attack, and a little bit more special attack, but it loses a tiny bit of special defense and a pretty considerable amount of speed. Now, if you're going to tank one of your stats, speed is probably the one that is the most okay to tank, as long as you're well supported in all the rest of your stats. It does suck to have a little bit less special defense on the Forretress. However, with an additional 10 points in HP, this is arguably better. It does mean that Forretress is going to take physical hits a little bit better than Skarmory, if you could believe that. Although the type profile does kind of change things because, you know, Forretress has to now contend with Earthquake, whereas Skarmory gets to bypass that entirely. So, yeah. Overall, I would say that if we're saying Skarmory's stats are, like, amazing, then Forretress's stats are pretty damn good. At the very least. Maybe even better, arguably. But let's talk about the interesting move pool that Forretress gets as another thing that differentiates it from Skarmory. So we have Spikes, Rapid Spin, and Explosion, of which Skarmory only gets the Spikes. Forretress can leverage some unique coverage and utility moves to kind of alter its matchup spread. So first we have Earthquake, a move that Skarmory does not get. It's really, really good for stopping Magneton from trapping you. If you think that your opponent has a Magneton team, you could sometimes just go for Earthquake as they switch to Magneton, and you just pop their whole mag. Don't even have to take any damage from it. Alternatively, you can get your Spike up, and if they do switch to Mag, whether you were expecting it or not, Forretress, thanks to its increased HP, not so much thanks to its decreased special defense, is actually very likely to survive a Hidden Power Fire from Magneton. You know, we know that Magneton uses Magnet to boost its Electric-type damage into Skarmory. It doesn't very commonly do that with Charcoal for Forretress, but it would have to do that if it wanted to have as good a role to kill Forretress as it does to kill Skarmory. So that's kind of an interesting application there. And then on occasion, Earthquake can be helpful for other Steel and Electric types. I've seen Forretress basically kill a Jolteon with Earthquake. It doesn't one-shot it outright, but after some Spikes and Sand Chip, it can get there. It can be an okay tool for trading into Metagross. It's not the best thing that Forretress has at its disposal, and I don't think it's the most consistent strategy for dealing with Metagross, but it can help, certainly, in that matchup. It can also stop a Sub-Jirachi from being able to set up its substitutes, and it can force its hand, especially if it's not running Fire Punch coverage, to just completely smash your Forretress. So all of that is good applications for the move Earthquake, not just for hitting Magneton, after all. But we have Counter as well, and Counter is the best move that you can have for dealing with something like a Metagross. You threaten to eliminate things like Metagross that love to stay in, click Agility, fish for mash raises, things like that. But Skarmory with Drill Peck, which is becoming very, very popular now. I would say probably in the ballpark of like 70% of Skarmory have Drill Peck now, when back in the day it was maybe closer to like 50-50, but and I don't disparage anybody for using Drill Peck on Skarmory. I think it's one of Skarmory's better moves, and I think it's really hard to justify dropping it in some cases, but of course some teams do like that Toxic Protect idea, or maybe like Toxic Counter of your own. Could be an interesting set for Skarm. But yeah, Drill Peck Skarm does beat down on the Forretress a little bit, but if you've got Counter, you can deal double that damage back to the Skarmory, and because Skarmory's got a lower HP stat, it's going to be taking even more than double the percentage that it deals to you as the Forretress. So that's kind of an interesting interaction there. Famously, Forretress is actually pretty good at sitting in on Skarmory, even if it has Drill Peck, because you can get your Spikes up and spin. Though the issue is that you'll probably be left at around 50% when you're switching out, and Skarmory's going to reestablish the spike. So it makes it a little more difficult for Forretress to come back in and remove that last spike after the Skarmory's been dealt with. But Counter is a way to just straight up stop Skarmory from sitting in and punching holes in your Forretress. So good stuff. Also, I want to note, Counter will work on every hidden power regardless of what type it is in ADV. And conversely, Mirror Coat will never work on hidden power. It's just a quirk of how hidden power is considered a normal type move, hence a physical move, even though it definitely does special types and does special damage when it is a special type. But Counter does just work against HP Fire, and it can be a tool that you can use to beat Pokemon that do have coverage HP Fire, in particular Magneton and Celebi. Zap Cannon. So, Zap Cannon is a really inaccurate move, only 50%, but the threat of paralysis will make it really difficult to justify switching in a Pokemon like Gengar, who would otherwise be a great answer to Forretress. How this generally plays out is the Skarmory will maybe stay in a turn or two on your Forretress, and then you reveal Zap Cannon. If you click Zap Cannon as they switch to Gengar, like say they want to get the immediate spin block, and you land it on the Gengar, then that kind of really hampers their ability to spin block, because now Gengar is going to be outsped by almost everything else on your team, probably literally everything else on your team, which means that it just is not really threatening. It can really only switch into the Forretress anymore. In addition, if the Gengar does not switch in and you've clicked Zap Cannon, whether you land or not versus the target that is in front of you, it's going to make this Gengar player very hesitant to switch to the Gengar, because switching in and getting paralyzed like puts them in that bad situation that I just described. So literally the threat of Zap Cannon is enough to kind of break through some of these Skarmgar teams. And then lastly, Toxic. So Toxic is a very rare move to run on Forretress, especially in ADV and in today's ADV. But sets that are foregoing super effective coverage into Claydol, i.e. Hidden Power, can use Toxic to be a supplement for beating down on this Spinner, who otherwise would love to stay in on Forretress, spin all the spikes away, and then chip away at it with Earthquake. So, yeah. Great moves for a strange Pokemon, but how do we put those together? So, I've got some rules for Forretress. Can you break these rules? Maybe, but you're going to have to be a better gamer than I am to do so. So that's going to leave us down to like 1% of the viewing audience here. No, I'm joking. I'm sure that more of you are quite good at this game and probably have ideas on where you can get away with cheating on some of these rules. But my first rule, Forretress must have the move Spikes. If you're not running Spikes, why wouldn't you just run Starmie or Claydol instead? Since those Pokemon have the spin utility, they have much better other matchups. And if you're running Explosion on Forretress, instead of Spikes, let's say, well then, like, Claydol is virtually just as good. I mean, it's a little bit weaker in terms of its explosion, but having Stab Earthquake is probably better. I mean, it also kind of threatens Gengar, who is the quintessential boom immunity in the tier. So, like, yeah, I mean, if you're not using Spikes on Forretress, then just use a different Pokemon that does what you needed the Forretress to do. Second rule, Fortress must have at least one of Rapid Spin or Explosion, which you're certainly allowed to run both on one set. I'm not saying you can't, but you have to have one of them. Because if you don't, then why wouldn't you just run Skarmory, right? Like, if you want a Spiker that has weird coverage, I mean, Skarmory's going to be able to do most of what Forretress can do with just Drill Peck, Toxic, and Roar. Like, yeah. What would you even run on a Forretress that has, like, 3 attacks, none of them are Explosion or Spin? I guess it would be Hidden Power, Bug, Earthquake, Zap Cannon? Yeah, I don't know. I would not run that. Please don't. Fortress must have the move Hidden Power. Now, this is probably going to be the most contentious of the rules here. I could maybe see you opting to run something instead of Hidden Power, and then you fill out your team with answers to the thing that you're losing for not having Hidden Power. But here's my deal. You need something that stops Claydol from sitting in on you. And we talked about on the previous slide, Toxic. And yes, you can run Toxic as your anti-Claydol measure. But if you're not running Hidden Power, then you don't have like a move that hits other things that would sit in on Fortress. If you have, say, Toxic, namely like opposing Steel types, namely like Skarmory and opposing Fortress. I'm saying you need a Hidden Power of some kind, because you need a move to hit Claydol, and if your move isn't Hidden Power, then it has to be Toxic, in which case you want Hidden Power Fire, is basically what I'm saying. I guess I could see maybe an argument for like Toxic Zap Cannon. And I could maybe see if you have a really strong way to spin block Claydol, like say you have Sableye on your team, you could possibly justify your Fortress not being able to like stop Claydol from sitting in on it. But like, you got to get deep in the weeds, and I would not recommend, especially if you're new, if you're coming to this like, oh, I want to build my own Fortress team, do not start with Fortress Sableye. That is a higher skill floor than I would recommend to newer players. So yeah. So I'm saying you gotta have Hidden Power, and it's probably gonna be Bug or Ghost. But there are some other things you can do, which we'll talk about. I kind of have alluded to before as well. And then every Fortress team must have a solid Rock Resist. Now, granted, every ADV team should have a solid Rock Resist, but in particular, Fortress teams really want one, because Dragon Dance Tyranitar loves to set up on Fortress. Yes, you might have a super effective stab Hidden Power Bug for it, but it's one of the weakest stab super effective moves that can be clicked into Tyranitar. Note that Fortress is usually not investing in its attack, so even though it's got a pretty respectable 90, it's not hitting like a base 90, or at least one that you would typically expect, you know? So, yeah. Claydol already has issues with killing off Tyranitar with its Stab Earthquake, and it's a really powerful move, right? Hidden Power Bug is a lot less powerful, and you're not as attack invested as Claydol is either, so yeah, no. So, yeah, these are my 4 rules. Now, you might think that there should be a 5th one here about Pursuit. And yes, but also no. Pursuit is a really good tool to have on a Fortress team. The reason being is that Fortress gets a lot of value out of being able to click Rapid Spin freely. The problem is, it's really easy for Gengar to switch into Fortress. And like most of the Forretress sets, the most common Forretress sets typically run like Hidden Power Bug, Explosion, or Earthquake. None of those moves hit Gengar very hard at all. So, in fact, 2 of them literally don't hit Gengar at all. So, Gengar tends to have a free switch in. But there are some things you can do outside of having a Pursuiter that make it sort of reasonable to not have Pursuit on a team. One of the things that you can do is pair Forretress with another spinner. Typically, it's going to be Claydol. Sometimes it could be something like Donphan or Starmie, though. The combination of having 2 spinners, sometimes you can force this Gengar to trade into removing one of your spinners, and then later on you reveal the next spinner after Gengar's kind of been compromised, and then you can spin the spikes then. Claydol's a great example of a Pokemon that works here because it's got that stab psychic, and you just need a little bit of chip on Gengar to make it so that it can't really effectively switch into your Claydol anymore. Also, if they do something like Destiny Bond or blow up on your Claydol to stop it from spinning, then if your Forretress is still around, you can spin with that. If you run it with a spinner that doesn't have a move to hit Gengar very well, like Donphan, then you're probably going to want to run Hidden Power Ghost on at least one of these spinners, so that you can effectively trade into the Gengar, punish it for switching in. And over the course of a longer game, if you get enough turns right, you can eventually stop that Gengar from switching in and then get your spin off. It's a really hard thing to do, especially if you don't have a lot of game knowledge, or if you don't have a very solid read on your opponent. So I wouldn't recommend playing with those teams again to start, but it's a way to get around having Pursuit on your Forretress team. But usually Pursuit is a really good tool, and I would recommend that you put that on as many Forretress teams as you can. Now, let's talk about the specific Forretress set that we're looking at today here. And this is basically like the standard when you think about it. It's Spikes, HP Fire, Toxic, Rapid Spin. HP Fire so that you can hit the other Forretress. Toxic, great for Cloyster, great for Snorlax. Force those to rest, or in the case of Cloyster, force it into an early boom. Rapid Spin is great. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my Gen 2 Forretress set. That's better. No, but seriously, this Gen 2 Forretress set kind of works in ADV as well. HP Fire, it doesn't deal as much to Skarm as you would hope, but it does do more damage than Drill Peck can. So, it's kind of an interesting situation. If the Skarmory does want to trade completely down with your Forretress, it's going to have to do so with kind of a deficit. It will be taking more damage over the course of the game via HP Fire than you will be through Drill Peck, so that's kind of cool. And you will 3-hit KO opposing Forretress. Now, I know you look at that and you're like, 4 times effective, and you're only 3-hit KOing? Well, like, yes, but if you reveal HP Fire and your opponent, their Forretress doesn't have HP Fire or counter, they are screwed. They have to switch, which means you're getting either a free turn to Spike, Toxic, or Rapid Spin. Like, that's a great value proposition for you. Now, granted, how many Forretress do you run into in ADV? I don't know. It's probably on about 10, maybe a little less than 10% of teams. So I don't know if it's like necessarily we should be running HP Fire for Forretress, but it is a great tool if you happen to be playing against opposing Forretress, and it's not a super duper uncommon Pokemon either, so it's not like it's a worthless slot here. Toxic is to stop Claydol from just like sitting in on our Forretress and getting Earthquake damage for free and doing all that nasty stuff. Sometimes Claydol runs refresh. That is very, very unpopular nowadays, but some old teams still have it, and some players still run those teams. That can be a little bit of an issue, but if you can at least get the Toxic off on the Claydol and force them to refresh, then you can get a relatively free switch to another Pokemon on your team, maybe like, for example, Pursuit Tyranitar. And sometimes Claydol will run Rest as well, but it's a lot better to force that Claydol to go to sleep, and then you can use those turns to try to gain some progress, than it is to let the Claydol just like sit in on your Forretress and beat it down with Earthquake. So yeah. And then lastly, the defensive investment. I'm not going to explain exactly like what we're living or not living with this, because it's basically just the standard. Has a little bit less HP, but we do have a little bit more SPDEF thanks to not having to run Hidden Power Bug. So yeah, I mean, it just gives us the best mixed bulk overall, which is the same as saying the best like overall bulk for Forretress. There's sometimes where it could be justified to run a physically defensive Forretress. Say if you have a team that you don't mind for some reason if Magneton traps your Forretress, but you want more bulk for matchups like, I don't know, like Tyranitar and Metagross, particularly Choice Band Metagross. You can live its Explosion with enough defense investment, which is kind of crazy. Like, you could maybe get away with that, but I would say, generally speaking, the more SPDEF you have, the better with Forretress, so yeah. We do have 8 speed EVs to offset our IV, kind of bringing us down. But this is so that we can outspeed other Forretress. I think if we watch some of these replays that we're going to show here in a moment, I do not have this speed investment, but I've decided just before making this video that it's probably better to outspeed opposing Forretress, because you catch them with the HP Fire, and then they have to make a decision about whether they're going to stay in or switch out, and if they decide to stay in and you can get that critical hit on them and just completely shut them down, that's great. Or if you get a crit on the first turn, then they just cannot switch in after that, or they cannot stay in, they'll have to switch out. So yeah, I think it's probably a little better to outspeed opposing Forretress. Generally though, I do think it's better to underspeed opposing Forretress, like if you're running Hidden Power Ghost or Hidden Power Bug, because I like having the slow spin on opposing Forretress. But, I mean, it's kind of 6 1/2 dozen. Doesn't really make much of a difference, so... But in the case that we have HP Fire, I do think it is probably worth it to outspeed there. If you were going to reallocate, you would probably want to put the 4 in special attack to give yourself a slightly better roll into all the steel types that you might hit with HP Fire. Not that most of them really matter, but it does, you know, doing a little bit of extra damage to Skarmory is appreciated. Alright, so here's our team structure. You probably see this big, fat pride flag up here because it's June, and I figured, well, I mean, I'm probably not going to get another video out before the end of June, so happy Pride Month to all of my queer fans here. I know a lot of queer people in the ADV community, and they're some of the best people in the community. Sorry to the non-queer people who are great. You're great too, but like, you're kind of getting outdone right now. Let's just say that. Yeah. And I guess while I'm on this tangent here, prior to my Quick Claw video, which was it's a divisive issue. I didn't think it would be so divisive, but it was. So I understand why that video got a greater percentage of dislikes than my typical videos do. Now, granted, we're talking like 90% like to dislike ratio instead of like 98%. My most disliked video prior to that was my Charizard video. I don't think it's a coincidence that that video had a pride flag in it because I did it last month or last year in June. And I'm just going to say this. If you dislike a video because there's a pride flag in it, you've got a problem and you need to talk to somebody and figure that out. Okay? Now, if you don't like my Charizard video because you didn't like the Charizard set, you don't like my presentation, whatever, that's fine. But if you're the type of person who dislikes something because you see a pride flag like this, you've got a problem. And I'm telling you, you need to work on that. All right. Rest, Zap, Registeel, Balance. That's the name of this team. I'm not giving cool names to teams unless I do something cool with them. So we're just going to keep it kind of straightforward with this one. This Forretress, it's serving as a spiker, spinner, and toxic spreader to support the medium sort of pace of this team. And all the other Pokemon here are supporting the Forretress as well, so that's how it kind of works. Zapdos and Registeel are the main special checks. Zapdos should be careful about when it uses Rest, because there are certain matchups where it's better to have a dead Zapdos than a sleeping Zapdos, which might sound crazy, but that is true. Particularly against teams that have a lot of like setup sweepers like Tyranitar, Salamence, Agility Metagross, stuff like that. They would much rather face the Zapdos while it's asleep and at max health than when it's at 10% and not asleep. Because they don't like to take that Thunderbolt, but they do like to take that opportunity to Dragon Dance or Agility up. So keep that in mind. Rest is going to be primarily to deal with opposing fat teams. So, yeah. And Registeel, you could say something similar about it and its boom, where you don't want to pop the boom so liberally with Registeel on a more like defensively paced team as this. But that boom is going to be an important lifeline, and if you pop it on the right Pokemon, you might just win the game. So, yeah. A great target, for example, would be an opposing Zapdos. Since we don't have a fantastic electric resist, Swampert's really the only one. It doesn't like to take an HP Grass, though. If you could pop the bottle versus that Zapdos, and then let your Zapdos handle something like Suicune, then you'll be in a good spot. So we have a fast-ish Pursuit Tyranitar. It's just a bit faster than the standard Claydol spread. That's going to help you to outspeed with Crunch and get the 2-hit KO on Claydol while it's trying to get the 2-hit KO on you with Earthquake. So that's really nice. You're still pretty defensive, and you still have enough special attack to be threatening into Gengar. So don't worry about that. It's a cool set. I think worth trying out on a team where our Forretress doesn't have a super effective move to hit into the Claydol. Now, Toxic is going to put it on a timer, but Toxic plus Fast Suitar is going to put tons of pressure on Claydol, so that's really nice. We have a Brave Swampert, which is a plus attack boosting nature. Kind of redundant to say it, plus attack and boosting, but you know what I meant. That's going to help us with Blissey. I believe crit into non-crit Earthquake will just kill Blissey outright, so that's good. Yeah, and it's also going to be our main Tyranitar check. We do have a little bit of extra damage because of the investment, so sometimes where other defensive Swampert might not get the kill, or even offensive Swampert might not get the kill on Tyranitar with Earthquake, our Swampert might be able to, so check the calc to make sure that you're clicking the optimal move there. Typically, this Swampert would have Hydro Pump to help it with hitting Skarmory, but because we have Forretress, I'm opting to go with Surf and having less special attack investment and more defense. You know, keep in mind when you're maybe trying to adapt this team using sets from it that this Swampert set is with having Forretress on the team in mind. So if you switch that Forretress up, you might need to switch your EVs on your Swampert. And last we have DD Salamence. Now, I think usually with a team like this, you would expect like a Wish Salamence, because Wish support is really good with Forretress, since it has to keep switching into spikes throughout the game to spin them away. It likes having that sort of additional healing. And Mixments is a good Pokemon, and it's certainly could have a place on this team, but I found that actually it's nice to have the breaking power of a DD Salamence. So we're kind of using it as a breaker more so than a sweeper, but sometimes it can be a win condition depending on how you've set up the pieces for a team. I think on a team, this might look quite similar to some other teams where maybe this Salamence is choice banded and the Registeel is a Wish Blissey, and I'm sure that that's another kind of version of this team that could work really well, but I wanted to use Registeel. Sue me, man. So this is what I came up with. I hope it works out, and I hope you all enjoy it as we move on to the replay section. All right, we've got our Puyo Puyo 7, specifically, soundtrack to guide us through. It's been guiding us through this entire video. I've been on a little bit of a Puyo Puyo kick. As in, I've been watching a lot of Puyo Puyo games and listening to the soundtrack. I've not played in a little while, but an arcade near me has Puyo Puyo Fever, which is really fun. I like taking people who don't know anything about Puyo Puyo and saying, hey, play this game. It's a lot like Tetris, and then like dropping a 5 combo on their head and they don't even know what happened. But this is the replay section. Let's get into the replays. Lead Tar versus lead Zapdos. Tar pretty good into Zapdos. I'm going to have to switch to Swampert as they just go for a straight up Dragon Dance. And Double Edge does a good chunk to me, but Earthquake is going to kill the Tyranitar back. And that's one of the advantages of this Swampert set. Because I think defensive Swampert usually does not get there. And they're going to go Celebi here, and they click Calm Mind. And I think you should probably know the entire 6. Based on what's happened so far. You might say, Tetrafolium, that's crazy. They've only revealed 2 Pokemon. Well, if you know the sample teams, this is looking very much like Slop, where the idea is you want to trade your Tyranitar for damage into Swampert early, so you can set up for a DD Salamence win condition. And that is commonly paired with Pokemon such as Endeavor Swampert, Registeel, Super Celebi, which we see here, and then last Pokemon would probably be Raikou. In any case, we're going to go to Registeel, who is our best answer into Celebi, and we're going to blow up immediately, and then go Salamence, who should be able to tank a hit from the Celebi, even at +2. And just go ahead and kill it there. If I was smart, maybe I could have went for a Dragon Dance of my own, but I just wanted to make sure that the Celebi was dead. I didn't want to mess around with it. Depending on what coverage my Salamence has, there might not be a good switch-in for him on his team, especially if I had Earthquake. But he might go to his own Salamence playing around my Earthquake. I was not clicking Rock Slide there, so I wouldn't have the most effective punish should he have switched to Celebi out. So basically, let's not get too greedy. Let's just take the kill on the Celebi as we get it. And he's going to go to Raikou here, who should outspeed and kill with Thunderbolt. But I still have my Zapdos, which has quite a lot of special defense to handle a Raikou. And he's going to switch out as I go for Toxic. Note that the Raikou on Slop is 3 attacks, Calm Mind, so I guess Super Raikou, if you want to think about it like that. Meaning it doesn't have Substitute, meaning it does not want to take the status from whatever the Zapdos is packing. I will go to Forretress now on this Registeel. Usually you want to get your Spiker involved earlier in the game, but I didn't have a great opportunity to go to the Forretress earlier. Seismic Toss coming down and doing a decent chunk to my Forretress. This is where counter would actually be really nice, because you would do double damage on the Seismic Toss back to the Registeel, which would be over 50%, because Registeel only has, I think, 364 HP, something like that. So we'd be doing 200 damage per counter there. We're going to get our Tyranitar in, and we're going to crit our Fire Blast into Registeel, which is really, really nice. And he's just going to blow up, so not fantastic for him, but it's not terrible either. I'm going to go to Zapdos, who should be able to take N-Pert on pretty well here. We can just roar him out. He goes for Substitute there, very greedy. But Toxic is hitting all now, so we're in a great spot. And he's going to go to his Swampert as I miss my Toxic. If I hit the Toxic, it was completely over for his Pert. But I'll go to Tyranitar, stack it off there, meaning I can go to a Pokemon like my Salamence, which outspeeds a Swampert and force him to switch, or he's going to have to die. And he's just going to choose to die. So there we go. Play around the hacks if you can. Don't let it get to you. We're going to go Zapdos on a crunch here. He really, 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 really does not want to let me go Swampert, even though he literally has HP Grass to hit it. Just click Thunderbolt, bro. Alright, but he gets his Spadef drop, I guess. So that kind of works out for him. Finally hit my Toxic on this Raikou, though. That's great. And I will switch to Swampert on a crunch here. Maybe I should have just sacked the Zapdos, but I figured he wouldn't click HP Grass at the very least. And I can play around here by going to Mence on the HP Grass that turn. Let this Toxic damage rack up. And then we can sack off the Zapdos so I can get into the Pokemon that I want to be in versus his Salamence, which is my Swampert, whose Ice Beam should be not quite KOing, unfortunately, but doing enough to make a difference here. And he goes for Earthquake, and then Rock Slide. Okay. Gets the flinch. It is what it is. Then gets the Earthquake off. And then I go to Salamence, and then because I'm a smart guy, my DD Mence outspeeds other DD Mence, so we get that kill there. Great. Little critique for my opponent here. Earthquake here, fine. Perfectly fine. Alright. So, he clicks Rock Slide here because he's predicting my Salamence to switch in. And I'm not going to fault him for not clicking HP Flying, because I know the team. I know he doesn't have HP Flying. He's DD, Earthquake, Brick Break, Rock Slide. So he does need to click Rock Slide to kill my Salamence if it switches in on this turn. However, if you're predicting Salamence to switch in, you should be clicking Dragon Dance, not Rock Slide. Why? Because you want to guarantee that you will outspeed my Salamence after it comes in. You also offset the Intimidate, so Swampert can't just switch back in and tank your next Earthquake, which could be a problem for you, right? Because if I go to Salamence here, get the Intimidate, and then come back in with Swampert, I'll get some more leftovers. Chip healing will be up to 26%. Your Earthquake only did 28 at neutral, so you wouldn't kill at -1. So the Dawn W, if you're watching this, in this situation, if you're predicting Salamence to come in, click Dragon Dance. Now, it wouldn't have worked out for you because I stayed in and I clicked Ice Beam. And the Rock Slide did get the flinch, but like ultimately that didn't matter, right? It didn't change the outcome of the game. Salamence was still coming in and getting the kill. So yeah. Next game. Lead Metacham versus Zapdos. There's not a great thing to do versus lead Metacham with this team, but I just stay in with Zapdos because I'm like, I don't want him to Focus Punch, but he does get the kill on me with Rock Slide. So I don't know. Maybe if you're playing this matchup out, versus Metacham. Maybe experiment with switching. I don't know who you would switch into. I don't switch into Swampert. That's going to be a bad one. But at the very least, we can come in and Pursuit Trap the Metacham. So we'll leave it at 38%. As he goes to Swampert. And he just does not fear or respect HP Grass. Maybe I should be putting HP Grass on my Tyrannitars. I don't know. But we can just get into Forretress, get our Spike up. Houndoom is here. Okay. I don't want to take a Fire Blast or a... don't love to take a Burn here either, but I guess we're going to go to Swampert and get burned anyway, because lucky and good. But this is what we have Refresh for. I do switch to check HP Grass, because even though he doesn't respect my HP Grass, I will respect his. And I'll stay in with this Registeel to get a Thunder Wave off on the Houndoom. This Houndoom's putting in some work here, but now that it's paralyzed, it's kind of neutralized. And I'll just blow up to catch whatever the switching is. It happens to just stay in with Houndoom, so that's fine with me. His Mence comes in. It's faster, so I'm going to assume that it's mixed. So I switch into Tyranitar, take the Dragon Claw there. I should be able to take a Brick Break because he's -1, which he's not going to stay in. He's going to respect Ice Beam, I guess. But alright. I get a crit on Pert, which is good compensation for that burn on my Pert. Even though I do have Refresh, so I should be able to get that off at some point. I will go to Mence on what I'm pretty sure is going to be an Earthquake. And then back to Forretress on the Ice Beam. And now we can throw a Toxic. But he's going to go to his own Forretress here. So that's not good for me, except like it's really good for me, actually. Look at that 40%. You going to stay in, buddy? He is going to stay in, actually. That Mence is going to come in, and I'm going to just Rapid Spin. And we're at a pretty good spot there. That Forretress got chipped, and we end up with a Spike, and he does not have a Spike. I like the look of this. We'll go to Swampert on the Fire Blast here, and then I'm just going to sack it off because it's just like I'm not going to be able to get this Refresh off. Tyranitar is in. It should live a Brick Break still. He'll go for it, though. Even though I've already revealed Ice Beam. Great play. Sorry. I've been getting really toxic when I'm reviewing my own games here. It's maybe not a good thing, but he's going to lock into Rock Slide, so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to get my Forretress in. We'll just take the kill on Metacham. That's more value to me than getting the second Spike down, and it's preserves some HP, which is mostly the reason why. I'll get a Toxic off on the Swampert, and yeah, this is looking quite dangerous for my opponent. I'm going to pivot to Mence. I would not necessarily recommend doing this in like a tournament set, because I think if my opponent was on a level that I would expect a tournament player to be at, and the stakes were sufficiently high, I think they would maybe click Ice Beam there to stop my Mence from coming in and allowing my Forretress to come back in and then just kind of spike all the way up. But it's ladder, and based on the way that my opponent's been playing, I figured I could probably get away with this, and I did. So I get the Intimidate off on the Pert, get a little bit more Toxic chip. I'll switch back to Forretress. I was never staying in there unless I was mixed, in which case, well, the Swampert already kind of lost that, but kind of cheeky, I'd do it again. That one was maybe not that necessary, but we'll have to see, though. I will take the kill, though, on that Swampert, and then it is a Snorlax last. So it actually probably for the best that I have my Mence in here rather than my Forretress, since I don't really have a great move to handle the Snorlax on my Forretress. Instead, I've got this Brick Break Mence who's looking phenomenal. And my opponent's going to forfeit before I can even switch back to my Forretress and claim the 1v1 kill there. So I'm not feeling remorse for any sort of criticism I might be levying at the opponent here. Come on, man. Let me hit my clip. well, regardless. You see the value there of that hidden power fire toxic, right? Again, especially against like a Forretress team like this, you click that hidden power, it's like, okay, now we have to switch. Who wants to take the toxic? Not very many. The Snorlax probably should have been coming in on that. And honestly, Snorlax is really good into this team. Maybe consider that one next time we play. Chansey Billups, 1748 gamer. I'm pretty sure I know who this is, but I'm not going to out them. It is a Hariyama lead for my opponent. I don't like that. I don't necessarily love getting knocked off on anything. So I'm going to go to Tyranitar because it's the Pokemon that I probably need the item on the least. And then I think I'm going to stay in and Fire Blast. No, I'm actually going to switch out into Salamence here. Good thing I did, because that would have looked like a fool. But I'll go for Hidden Power Flying. I guess my opponent maybe wasn't expecting that, or maybe they were okay to take that damage and then just go for the knockoff. Since I was revealed not Choice Band. Brick Break coming down for not very much damage into the Zapdos, but the Rock Slide is going to do quite a bit. His Zapdos not going to do so much back to my Mence, though. And he's probably going to have to switch, in which case I take this opportunity to go to Forretress, and he goes to his own Forretress. We can just trade spikes here. But I'm going to go for a big hidden power, and that did a lot of damage, 6-7%. That tells me that he's actually a Fizz Def Fori. He doesn't have any special defense investment. Interesting. He's going to blow up there. That does a lot. And then get the Dugtrio in. Dugtrio Earthquake is not going to get the kill, but it is going to limit me to one spike and not be able to spin. On that turn, I decided that it was probably more value for my team versus what I've seen to just get the spike up rather than spin this spike away. I think he's going to have Blissey for sure. And then last could be a few things. Probably a Pursuiter, though. So maybe Tyranitar. Or maybe another Spinner. Maybe Claydol. Either way, though, like having this spike to put pressure on Dugtrio and Hariyama and potentially Blissey is good for me. I'm going to take the opportunity to get my Dragon Dance up, and then we're going to kill off this Yama thanks to the Sandstorm and that spike. You see that? The spike was big. It's actually going to be a Suicune here. I'll just throw out my +1 HP Fly and take my chip on Suicune. This is now looking kind of dangerous for him because Thunderbolt is doing a lot. But anticipating that he would want to switch, I go for Toxic, and I managed to find the Blissey. Not the best possible Pokemon to Toxic, but that is the best possible click for me into Blissey, so I'm fine with that. I will go Tyranitar. He doesn't know what my Tyranitar set is, just that it had leftovers, so he's going to probably respect the common things that it could be. I'm going to throw out my Crunch and get Suicune down to 14%. It's forced to rest. And I'll stay in and I'll Crunch one more time. If I get a Spadef drop, I might be able to just beat the Suicune while it's sleeping. I'll keep going for the Crunch, though. I should probably switch out to Zapdos at some point here. But throw out that next Crunch there. Why not? What do I do here? Am I just going to stay in until I get full parried? Silly Tetrafolium. Should have switched to Zapdos. But we will switch to Zapdos here. And I do happen to have the faster Zapdos. He's also a rest Zapdos. It's actually a speed tie. Never mind, I clicked Roar. Silly Tetrafolium. But I clicked Roar there because I figured he would switch. And I would want to get some chip damage racked up on something. Probably Blissey. And I'm going to go to Registeel as the Suicune is roared in. And he actually goes to Dugtrio. Not exactly what I was hoping to find, but I do manage to get my counter off and kill this Dugtrio, which I'm okay with. And he goes to Blissey. I'm like, well, okay, this is a free boom. And yeah, that Blissey's dead. Now Zapdos is cleaning the fuck up right now. Thunderbolt comes down, kills his Zapdos. That Suicune's not going to wake up in time, and I managed to sneak a win off of Chansey Billups here. This team really, really good into opposing Forretress teams, as you can see. I wonder if Hariyama is a rock resist, but it's not a super duper solid one. Maybe you kind of get away with the combination of Hariyama, Dugtrio, and Bold Suicune as being effective enough into DD-Tar that you don't need something like a Swampert. But yeah, there you go. Kind of stretching the definition of solid rock resist for my rules for Forretress. But I do like his team. I think this is a pretty solid one. And if you want to try to copy it, be my guest. It's working for Chansey Billups, so there we go. And let's get one more Puyo Puyo theme in here. Why not? Dark Arl. Spoilers, I guess, for Puyo Puyo 7. There we go. Last game, we're up against Zac Master. Zapdos versus Zapdos lead. He goes for a Thunder Wave as I go for a Toxic, so we're both kind of cheating on potential substitutes there, but I like my Toxic on him better. He goes to Metagross there, and usually leads Zapdos, especially like a faster one, not rest, plus Metagross, but Metagross is probably going to be really, really offensively slanted, very likely banded. I figured he's either going to mash or he's going to boom. Either case, I'd rather my Zapdos eat that and then take the Thunderbolt damage. We'll go to Tyranitar here, which should scare out his Zapdos. But he's going to Thunder Wave, I guess, because, you know, ladder gamers, man, they don't care about preserving their shits. They're like, Rock Slide? Who asked? Let me get my Thunder Wave off. Thankfully, I clicked Ice Beam there instead of Pursuit. But I'll click Pursuit here. Get out of here, Zapdos. Notably, you cannot get full Parrot on a turn that you go for Pursuit as the opponent is switching out there. So, kind of a cool thing there. I was guaranteed to get that off. So I don't know if you knew that, but that's how it works. Machamp is here, and Machamp's usually the selling point of Machamp is that it can click Bulk Up as Salamence switches in, and then force some damage with Rock Slide. And Hidden Power doesn't even two-shot. But my opponent's going to go up to +1 here, +2 defenses. I'm going to go to Swampert to take the Rock Slide here. And he goes for Brick Break. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Brick Break on Machamp. I think Cross Chop is probably better. Or Low Kick if you don't want to miss. Low Kick hits almost everything just as well as Brick Break. The one really notable exception would be Jirachi. Blissey, I guess you technically don't hit as hard, but Blissey's not switching in, and it's always switching out, so come on now. All right, Forretress versus Curselax. Curselax, nasty, nasty, nasty Pokemon for my team. But Registeel is here as a sort of stopgap. My opponent's going to curse way the fuck up. Hopefully we can at least force it to rest at some point. We get the full para, another full para there, and I'm like, well, you know what? I see an opportunity. Let me just blow up. And I wouldn't have killed there, but I would have probably left it in range for either Swampert or Salamence to finish it off. But we do get a crit there, which is very fortunate, so nice. My Mensa's in versus Jolteon. Not a great position to be in, to be honest, but it does at least force the Intimidate on it in case it wants to go for a baton pass. He has revealed no leftovers, so he's a cooker for sure. I don't know what it would be. Papaya berry? No, lumberry, I guess. Why? What? Why be lumberry on Jolteon? Just run leftovers, man. You have a guts Pokemon to switch into Thunder Waves. What are we doing? All right, sorry. And then I don't quite get the favorable rolls for Tyranitar to live here, but that's okay because Forretress is doing just enough damage to be dangerous. Never mind. He goes for Wish, and I do get the kill there. And now he's got Machamp in. All right, I want to note something here. Hidden Power Bug. Resisted by fighting. How much do you think Forretress's Hidden Power Bug does to Machamp? The answer? 10% max. So I actually would not kill this Machamp, meaning that this Wish would go onto it, which means it can bulk up and be a big fat pain in my ass for the rest of this game. However, Machamp does not resist fire, so it can get this bulk up off, but Hidden Power Fire does get the kill. And that's huge. That's massive. My Forretress can just stay in here. If it's mixed, then... well, okay. If it's mixed, I kind of maybe just lose the game. Maybe my Salamence could live a Dragon Claw and have something to say back. Or maybe he could miss a Fire Blast and I could get my Toxic off. But in the case that he's DD, which of course he is with this squad, I mean, who needs special attackers when you've got 2 electric types, right? I can go for my Toxic here, and I miss my Toxic, of course. Rock Slide coming down, you gotta get the Paraflinch cheese going. You know you gotta. But fortunately, I am able to get my Toxic off there, and he's gonna forfeit the game. I could just switch back and forth between Mence and Fori to keep this Salamence low on its Dragon Dances, and then if Swampert can live the hit, we can just go for Ice Beam and get the kill. He may not even have enough turns to quite make it work here, so yeah, good stuff for the Forretress there. Rare application of HP Fire being potentially optimal into that Machamp. Now granted, HP Ghost would have also gotten that kill, so let's not glaze HP Fire too much there, but funny that we kind of he kind of just assumed he would live it, because Forretress just like, of course you're gonna run a Hidden Power Bug on Forretress, but yeah, no, so cool sort of interaction there, and that's gonna do it for this video. If you're here this long, you're probably cool with me yapping just a few minutes longer. You may have noticed that I have not uploaded in a little while. I did that stream last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and then it was my video where I top ladder. Was the last one that I actually uploaded to this channel. And I'm not gonna lie, it's not really because I've been busy. Yeah, I've been doing some stuff for Revival tournaments, but just being honest here, I've kind of been struggling a little bit lately, and one of the things that I'm struggling with is enjoying sitting down and playing Pokemon, which is, I've not felt this way in a long time, particularly about Pokemon, but I don't know, it's just something about the game is not really gelling with me right now. That's not me saying I'm quitting and I'm not going to make any more YouTube videos or whatever, but I'm going to need to slow down at the very least, with playing Pokemon. So that I don't like burn myself out trying to force myself to play when I don't really feel like playing. And another part of this is that I'm probably not going to be playing in tournaments for a little while. Like, I don't know. The tournaments honestly are the worst for keeping my mental focused on the game, because it's just so much stress to prep for them, and then you get to the game and you're just like, I'm so uptight about not losing because I don't want to lose. Especially in team tournaments, I don't want to let my team down. And then like your opponent like gets the hacks to go their way, or they just play out of their mind to beat you, and it's just like it feels so bad, man. And I've got maybe a little bit of a problem of like, maybe I don't know how to describe it, but like sometimes you play a game and you get smashed either by RNG or because your opponent outplayed you, and you think to yourself, man, I was worthless that game, or I feel worthless that game. And like I'm having a bit of difficulty separating I feel worthless right now and like I believe that I'm worthless right now, which I know I'm not. I know that the things that I do, even for as niche a community as this, are important, but and appreciated. And thank you all for watching. That's all the appreciation I need, really. But like, it's still not a good feeling. So yeah, I'm gonna take some time to really work through that, realign myself, and then hopefully I'll come back fresh with Mons soon. Probably still make a video here and there while I'm working through it, just to keep things going. But yeah, there you go. Anyway, if you've stuck through that, then I know you're a real one, and I really appreciate you. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.